Beside the River Rouge in Detroit lies one of the largest and oldest industrial sites in the world, the Ford Rouge Center, the home base of the Ford Motor Company. This is where the first Ford rolled from the production line. Cars have been built there for 80 years. For 80 years, there was no consideration for the environment, nature, and the river. There was enormous pollution, and Ford was faced with the choice: either abandon the site or redevelop it. Bill Ford decided to overhaul the industrial site. It had to become cleaner. He was advised to go and talk to Bill McDonough.
I've heard Bill Ford tell the story that he was reluctant to do so. You know, you get introduced to a lot of people that supposedly have the magic solution to these issues. And so they just set a 30-minute meeting to get acquainted with one another. Largely, you know, I'm sure he thought it was going to be a courtesy meeting. Well, that 30-minute meeting turned into several hours and ultimately turned into the assignment to apply his theories to the Ford Rouge Center.
Well, when I met Bill Ford, it was more that he convinced himself than I convinced him. He was already prepared to look for a way to do something positive. The commission to do the River Rouge, which is a $2 billion project with a 20-year schedule, was given to me in public without my knowledge. And I think it was because that way the company was committed to it, and I was committed to it, and even though it looked impossible, we just were stuck, you know, and so we had to produce shareholder value or we were both in trouble. So that was the assignment, and that's what we did.
Construction began on the renovation of the Rouge Center in 2000.
Today we're unveiling the Heritage Project, the environmental renovation of the Rouge. The goal of the Heritage Project is to transform the icon of 20th century manufacturing into the model of 21st century sustainable manufacturing.
The site was renovated at a cost of $2 billion, according to the ideas of Braungart and McDonough, ideas that people at Ford were not used to.
You know, I was really, honestly, emotionally moved by Bill and Michael. You know, when you first meet them, you know, they look a little kooky, you know, certainly due to an American businessman. You know, I met Bill McDonough, and he's heard this story before. He was wearing a bow tie and a cape and a beret, and, you know, it's not at all what you meet in a very, you know, this is how we look at Ford Motor Company. And he was an architect from the University of Virginia, and Michael was this chemist from Germany that used to be in Greenpeace. So, you know, your initial reaction is, of course, you know, these guys are nothing but trouble, and they're going to be, you know, oh my God, why do I have to work with them? Bill's objective for us was, we want this to be a site where you would be happy to have your children play. Now, you know, in the beginning, we don't even know how to deal with this. What the heck kind of an objective is that? How do we measure it? Does that make any sense? But as I began to think about it, I said to myself, you know, I have kids, and I would say, no, I don't want my children to play here. And my guess is virtually any parent would give that same answer. Well, now I've got a site with wetlands, green space, wildlife, honeybees, and I think I could take the same parents, including me, and ask them the same question and get a yes answer. So in reality, that was a business-like objective, and it was measurable. We didn't think of it that way when we first heard about it.
The Rouge site was transformed into a kind of industrial nature park, just like Herman Miller's. The wastewater from the whole site is purified naturally. Use is made of sun energy. The new factory was built with many windows to allow daylight in. The whole production process has been cleaned up, and attention is paid to all waste flows. The roof of the new production hall is one big meadow, covered with sedum that purifies the rainwater and provides the birds with a new home. All very fine and natural, but most business managers will see it as an exaggerated form of eco-luxury.
Well, that's because they see it as a cost. They presume that each one of these things adds to the cost of regular production, and that they're just icing on a cake. or a cake instead of bread, you know, and that's utopian. But it's not, because if you look at our production facility for Ford Motor Company, we saved Ford $35 million doing it this way.
What we found is if you think about it in the design stage, you can come up with environmental programs that actually save you money, they don't cost you money. So let's take the green roof as an example. Now, it costs money to put a green roof on top of a truck plant, but it actually will save us many times the cost of putting it on there. It will double the useful life of the roof because it will protect the roof from UV degradation, which causes leaks. Re-roofing a 10.5-acre roof is a several million-dollar job, so it will save us money there. It saves us money on heating and cooling costs because it insulates the plant from the extremes of hot and cold. And it saves us money in regulatory costs because it absorbs stormwater that we would otherwise have to take to a chemical treatment plant before we could discharge it to the nearby river. Instead, we're letting nature do what nature does. That stormwater today is now absorbed in the green roof, and it is naturally filtered before it ever gets to the Rouge River. So it's saving us really millions of dollars as opposed to costing us anything. And that's just one example.
If utopianism is profitable business, then I guess this is utopian.
That's what's inspirational about it. I mean, the world's full of dreamers. You know, I don't have any time for dreamers. I have time for people that are inspirational and have thought through the real issues that you have to deal with as a business and have developed a formula to successfully navigate that challenge.
Ford also involved McDonough and Braungart in the development of a completely new car, a car powered by hydrogen, with seats filled with Sawyer foam and tires of maize plastic. The car is to be made entirely from biodegradable materials or technical materials that can be used again as raw materials.
In the business future I can imagine, that vehicle has a value in the future. Its components can be reused, either reconfigured to a different kind of vehicle or reapplied in some other business, maybe not our business. That is not how vehicles are built today. I build you a vehicle, I hope it lasts a few years. After a few years, you know, you and I have to figure out what we're going to do with that vehicle. We're probably going to send it to a scrapyard or a landfill or something of that nature. So it has no value. And I have to go out and buy more stuff and build another new vehicle. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me. I think there's a lot of valuable stuff in there. You know, there was a statistic that we found when we were looking at the Rouge project. Today, it takes 50,000 pounds of raw materials to make a 3,000-pound car. That's a lot of waste. And we can change that. Why don't we use 3,000 pounds of material to build a 3,000-pound car? It'll cost an awful lot less. There'll be a lot less environmental problems. I'll be happy, my customer will be happy. I think this is a philosophy that is going to affect every industry. And we're going to, by the way, make a lot of money on this. You know, this makes business sense, and that's one of the things that most impressed me about Bill and Michael. I've listened to any number of thinkers and writers on the subject of sustainability, which is often described, as you know, as the triple bottom line of social, environmental, and economic performance. But almost every one of them, after they articulate that triple bottom line, talk exclusively about the environmental component. A few talk about the social component. Almost none of them have bothered to figure out how to make business sense out of sustainability. That's what is unique about Bill and Mike.
In 2006, a meeting takes place in Beijing Hotel between an American delegation and representatives of the Chinese government and industry. The meeting is behind closed doors, and only Chinese state television is allowed to film.
China is looking very hard at environmental issues because they're in a complete crisis there. I mean, so they have all of the different situations of human experience. They have the most destructive events going on, and they have some of the most hopeful events going on, and the entire range in between. So the president of China has called for a circular economy, and as part of that call for circular economy, it calls for cradle to cradle thinking. It's national policy in the new 5-year plan. It means that materials are in closed cycles, and that come back, and that waste equals food, and that systems are designed so that they're safe and healthy and circle in the economy and come back and go out and come back and go out. and that the people are fed and the soils are kept and the economy can continue because the materials and energy are in closed cycles. So it means renewable energy, it means safe materials, it means new production process. China, in its last 2 5-year plans, was focused on industrialization and the building of its cities to take the rural population that was moving to the cities and to industrialize and develop its market economy. So we're doing these demonstration projects, for example, here in Jinan. This is taking a degraded site that has been downwind of various things that have polluted it, and then rebuilding that site into an eco-city here. Now, the idea of restoring the landscape is critical because if they're going to lose all their farmland by urban development in our cities, where we look at trying to put the farms on the roofs, say let's reserve and preserve our farmland because we're going to need it for a healthy, thriving population. But even in villages, we're looking at the idea that in the next 5-year plan, the idea is to develop the villages in a way that people don't want to leave. And so we're looking at how to build sustainable housing, sustainable enterprises, grow fuels, develop new kinds of agriculture that allow people to stay and thrive on the villages instead of having to go to the cities. So I think China is very worried that with this massive migration, 700 million people in the villages, 700 to 800 million, of them, if 400 million go to the cities, they're afraid they won't find jobs in the future, and then we'll get slums. And if we get slums, we get social unrest. The other problem is, as the cities expand into the countryside, the farmers are concerned their land is being taken for the new development, and so there's civil unrest among the peasants. So any government formed by a peasant uprising has to get worried when the peasants are upset. So that's the part of the new model.
The Chinese Revolution has taken a new turn. The concept that waste can be food is understood by large countries and major companies. If the concept can only find its way to the consumer, then the revolution can begin.
We have the opportunity now. We have now smart designers, young scientists, and it's time just to reinvent everything. And everybody can do his own work. He can go to the supermarket and can say, hey, can I compost it? Can I burn it without a filter? Yeah? Or do you take it back? Yeah? And it's only, the society is so complex that everybody who does this generates so much momentum, yeah, to make changes that even 5% can make changes. I talked to Mikhail Gorbachev about perestroika and glasnost, yeah? And Mikhail Gorbachev said, look, we only had about 5% of the Communist Party. Yeah? Everybody else didn't understand what we were doing. But 5% really understood this, and they made a change. Yeah? And they could destroy the whole totalitarian regime. We don't have a totalitarian regime, we have democracy. We can do things. Yeah? So it's not dangerous for us. Yeah? We can just reinvent everything in a free society. Yeah? And it's time to do this.
Wouldn't it be nice?